Press brief for this Thursday morning, the 7th of December 2023. On this program, we focus more on the people and we'll be back to give you what they are saying. Hey there, viewers of High Television, you are welcome to Press Brief for today. And for presentation, I am attending Larry Kevin Sabot. We start off with the Median. The Median from Yaoundé, the paper of Stephen Ojong says, Yaoundé Libreville Corporation Bia gives paternal blessing to new Gabonese strongman. DDR coordinator Fayongo Francis says over 3,800 Amber Boys and Boko Haram insurgents have dropped their arms for the past 5 years. That is what the coordinator of Fayongo Francis speaks on page 5. We take you to electricity supply in Mamfe. It says a new steps up capacity of the Mamfe thermal plant. Ahead of Bomb Festival, Bafo Youth creates Cultural Union. Excessive rains, drought, how farmers cope in face of climate change. Get to read that climate action report on that set paper for today. Mutation of Terry Diaga says urbanization. It talks of Douala impracticable. That is what you can find on page 6 and 7 on Mutation for today. Humanity, then gone our heritage. You can find more on that set paper for today. Public finance, the paper report on the reforms put in place by the Minister of Finance Louis Paul Motaze. Get to read that on page 8 on Mutation for today. Next door to Lojo in Yaoundé of Haman Manor, it talks of migration. It says 5 years more than 27,000 migrants have disappeared. You can find more on that set paper for today. MTN Elite One Championship, the homologation gets in phase for Victoria United. As the paper reports, Victoria United might be relegated from the MTN Elite One Championship. 3.4 billion CFA francs from APME for the security in 2023. Get read more on page 6 on Lojo for today. From Lojo newspaper, let's take a move over to Emergence. Emergence says Cameroon Gabon, heaven without clouds. That is what you can find on that set paper for today. That's a big question the paper is asking following the 24 hours visit of the military junta president Brigadier General Brice Oligui Nguema to Cameroon, as he was received by President Paul Biya yesterday at the State House. The mining sector, it says more than 430 kilograms of gold was collected by Sonamin since 2021. And we take you now to the precious timber. The paper reports on Cameroon premium timber product at the world market. We move over to this one that talks of the heritage of the Ngon. It says Ngon with more international showcase. Get to read more on that said paper for this day. Let's info a show for this morning report on this one that says Sons of Prelude. It says Sons of Prelude thunderous passion in Brazzaville, Congo. Privatization of Camtel. It says Paul Biya opposes the privatization of Camtel. You want to find that story on page 4 on Info Show newspaper for today. Jacques-Michel Nyuncho, he talks of the paradox of engagement of two phases. Get to read more on what the SDF MP says on page 5 on Info Show for today. From Info Show newspaper, we take you now to the Post. The Post of late Francis Wache for this morning says Biya Gabon military leader discuss fostering diplomatic ties. Boya Paramount Chief Dr. Isoka Endeli Robert tax traditional council members quarter heads to be assiduous. You can find that story on page 2. We'll move over to this one that says Ikomi Sako announces reinstatement of incorporation of Saudi Cameroon government in the United States of America. Wildfire consume Boya Chariot Hotel warehouse. We'll move over to Camtel. Decentralization Day says stakeholders applaud Camtel's endeavor in promoting local development in Cameroon. 1 year after the Giga Tower was inaugurated, it says Giga Tower stands tall, remains top destination for those who have class and taste in the locality of the southwest region, precisely in Limbe. We move away from the Post newspaper, this time around to next door Nigeria with the Punch. The Punch says Kaduna village bombing, protesters storm National Assembly, AI threatens suit, death reaches 127. We take you to those other stories. It says 346 billion naira voted for presidential jets, refreshment and orders by the Aso Rock occupant, that is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Airline the sum of 964 billion US dollars. Nigerian African carrier post losses. Federal government loses 161 million US dollars to mine year conflict with INTLS. We'll move away from Punch. We take you now to next door Punch Sport Extra for this morning. It says priceless assassin. You can find that story on that said paper. It says Nottingham Forest missing injured striker Ayiwajo Midas touch. Real Madrid plots final Mbappe offer to the French Cameroonian to move over to Real Madrid. We move over to this one that says fan praises Maguire over best player awards. Let's take you now to Napoli in Italy. It says Chelsea gets Osimhen transfer lifeline to Chelsea from Napoli. We come back to Cameroon with Astute Inc. for this day. Talks of Gabonese transitional leader Brice Oligui Nguema Clotaire visits big compound to explain. You can find more on the tete-a-tete that was granted him by President Paul Biya yesterday at the State House. Crossing over to Premier for today, says the Martinez Zogo, what is possible that needs to reinvestigate those who are mastermind of the killing of the journalist Martinez Zogo. Public health, the paper reports on the missing babies in some hospitals in the country. What has the Minister of Public Health, Manuela Malashi, has to say on this act? Get to read more intricacies on page 9 on Premier's newspaper for this morning. Away from that, we take you now to another health paper. That is Quotidian Sante for this morning. Talks of the reformation in the vaccination sector. It says Gavi, the paper reports on Gavi awards Cameroon 226.17 billion CFA francs so as to support Cameroon in the vaccination scheme in the upcoming 5 years. Get to read that story on that said paper. The Central Region, it says a campaign of supplementation when it comes to vitamin A. You can get to read more on that paper for today. Protection of persons living with disability. The government adopts a new document to strategize that will be going nationwide across the nation in order to protect persons living with disability. Get to read more on page 5 on Eco Sante Quotidian for this morning. Defi Actual Economic newspaper talks of the finance law for 2024. It says the top 10 priority of the budget. Get to read more on what the Prime Minister, Head of Government, Joseph Dion Kuti, was defending last week at the hemicycle of the lower house of Parliament. We move over to public financing. It says it talks on the increase recorded in the petroleum sector by the Minister of Finance, Louis Paul Motazi. Professor Kelly Moore Kingsley talks of an increase in the budget, the public investment budget that will goes away to boost the growth of the Cameroonian economy for the coming year. Get to read that story on page 5. We move over to the next paper. Investigating for talks of insecurity in Marwa. It says Jean-Marc Ekwamba denounced Get to read more on page 2 on Investic Info newspaper for this day. Innovation newspaper for today talks of Bitumaj and the roads network in Bayomayo. It says that take on Nyamboya Bridge, and as the member of parliament Mahadi calls on the Minister of Public Works Emmanuel Ganu Chomisi to be proactive when it comes to this porous roads network in the constituency that he hails from. In asset paper of Innovation newspaper, the audience granted by President Paul Biya to the military junta, head of state of the West African nation of Gabon, Brice Oligui Nguema. Get to read more on page 9 on that paper. The mining sector, Sonamen has collected 44 kilograms of gold for 2021. Get to read that story on that paper on page 9. Economy du Cameroon newspaper for today focuses on the Douala International Airport. It says no air condition, no fan, nothing. You can imagine the amount of heat in the town of Douala and how hot that airport is, as dissected for us by Economy du Cameroon newspaper for this day. Quite a worrisome one there. We'll take you now to this one on the bridge over Nyong Makak River. It says a Chinese company known as CFHEC maneuver. Get to read what that maneuver over the bridge over that river Nyong in Makak has to do. We take you now to this other one that talks of Central African sub-region, the touch of famine. Some 27 million persons are actually suffering from food shortage in the Central African sub-region. Lushapol of Carol Tambal for this day talks of maternal heritage of UNESCO. He says Ngon has been inscribed following this international conference of UNESCO that took place recently. You get to read that festival of the Ngon people from the people of Bamum in the Noon division of the West region. Cooperation ties between Cameroon and the Gabon Republic. Oligui Nguema received in audience by President Paul Biya. You want to find that story on page 9. Taking you now to the next publication, Info Matin for today, talks of the activities, precarious activities, the synergy of action between the Ministry of Basic Education and Cameroon Federation, Football Federation, known as FECAFOOT. This follows a memorandum of understanding that was signed and exchanged between both men, Professor Serge Etundingwa and Samuel Etofis. Get to read that story on page 4 on Info Matin for this morning. From Info Matin, we cross over to Bamenda with the Herald Tribune. The Herald Tribune says STF maiden neck meeting, Chairman Osi calls for discipline unity amongst party supporters. And we'll cross over to cultural development. Gon Festival enters UNESCO cultural heritage list. We take you now to reinforcing ban on circulation of motorbikes in Bamenda. Passengers, bike riders cheat death after violating SDO's order. Stamps Sapako celebrates golden and diamond jubilee in POM. This took place in the city of Bamenda. Makuda General Executive takes on office on Saturday. Get to read that story on page 2 on the Herald Tribune newspaper for this morning. Crossing over to Le Quotidien for this day, talks of Paul Biya and Oligui Nguema. It talks of this pleasant exchange at the Unity Palace as the Gabonese transitional military head of state was receiving audience by His Excellency Paul Biya. We take you to the Ngon Festival that have entered into the annals of history as one of the cultural heritage festival of UNESCO. Get to read more on that publication for today on page 12. Louis Echo newspaper says Emmanuel Wafo launches a court case against Celestin Tawamba for the dissolution of JICAM, that is Cameroon Union of Employer. You want to find that story on that said paper for today. The stadium in Toke in Bafoussam, it says, validates 30 years after. You get to read more on that said paper from Bafoussam. That is Louis Echo newspaper for today. Culture, it says, West Rolex produced with support of CRTV. Get to read that story on that said publication for this morning. We take a bow out of the studio now with the last paper we are having on our disposal. That is Cameroon Echoes for today. The paper from Kumba says at strategic meeting, Batanga chief strategizes design roadmap for peace development projects. Get to read that story on Cameroon Echoes of William Tiba Etwe for this day. After Meme Ezio Tonjong Shamalen repels a prefectural order for former chief, he states Kwakwa Bakundo settles on new traditional ruler. And we wrap up with this one from the Cameroon Opportunity Industrialization Center, known as OIC, graduates hundreds of laureates yesterday who are ready to take on the job market. Get to read more on page 11 on Cameroon Echoes for today. With Cameroon Echoes newspaper, this is where we'll put a wrap on this edition of the program Press Brief. Thanks immensely for the privilege of your company right up to this fine 24 minutes after 9 a.m. in Cameroon. Stay tuned in the company. You have a high television as more interesting